So, Mark, it's time for our first question, which is, how do we get more involved with your research programs?
Well, this consultation exercise is a really good opportunity for our members to start to give us their views about what subjects that we look at, particularly around safety standards, system risk, sustainability, health and well-being. Out of those areas, which are the important topics that they really would like us to focus on with the research grant that we receive from the DFT, so that we can focus the individual projects that we have to enable the industry to make a step change in terms of how it addresses some of the industry's biggest challenges. So we're particularly looking at how we can contribute to reducing industry cost, to reducing the carbon footprint, to improving performance, whether it's train performance or safety performance, and also the customer experience. So giving us their views through this consultation exercise, listing out those areas that they would particularly like us to focus on would be really, really helpful. And I think another area that we would value some input in is how we can better implement the findings and the recommendations that come out of the research programs that we run, because it is an issue of concern that we can spend quite a lot of money in producing some valuable research, but for various reasons the industry take-up of some of these is quite varied. And what we want to learn about is how we can better achieve some of that actually being implemented in the workplace.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I think that's a really good point. So it's not just about new research and people requesting it, but it's using the substantial volume of research we've already done to help members deliver that. It's one of the other challenges I think we have.
Yes, and I think it also summarises the transition that RSSB is going through at the moment, and how we can be a more member-focused organisation, how we can actually go out and help support our members implement the work that we've produced.
Great, thank you, Mark. Can we move on to our next question then? And this is in two parts. Does this new settlement mean you're expecting more involvement from members? And what if we don't have the time or resource to do this?
I think it certainly does involve a bit more upfront engagement from our members, and we're particularly looking at that the senior executives, the chief executives and managing directors to provide input and direction to the approach that RSSB takes to its work and how we prioritise certain things over other activities over the course of the next few years. And it's for that we are looking for some time to give us that sense of direction as to the areas they want us to focus on. But in return, I think it offers some efficiency savings going forward, because I think we can actually dispatch our work more efficiently. It's better focused on the areas that industry want us to concentrate on. And I think one of the outcomes from this change, this transformation that we're taking RSSB through, is that the working groups, the committees, and the various other discussion forums that exist can operate more efficiently. So the time that their people spend on those groups can realise better value. They can be more efficient use of time, better focused. So ultimately, it should reduce the overall member commitment. But it does require this upfront investment in order that the work programme that we set both for the next year, 17-18, and for the future years is better focused and actually meets their objectives and what they need to achieve to meet the industry 4C goals.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. So we need their input to get our work programme right. And then if the right work programme is then delivered, actually it should help our members become more efficient. That's one of the byproducts of our work, is to not only help them improve health and safety and sustainability, but actually should offer efficiency improvements to them as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Right, our next question. It's good to see greater transparency, but how are you going to meet the different needs of different types of members?
We're going to have to take the feedback that we receive from this consultation and also the forums that we're setting up, 4 separate discussion groups to look at the priority areas that are scheduled for February, and bring that feedback together and take a view in the round as to how RSSB can best allocate the resource that we have to looking at the different topics that industry asks us to look at. And then once we've done that and assessed how we best allocate the resource to meet their particular needs, we will feed that back. We'll explain the depth or quantity of feeding against particular areas, and also why we might choose that we won't do particular activities, because I think it is also about being clear about things that we won't do as much as things that we will do. And so we will provide that feedback probably in the sort of late spring, after the RSSB board has considered the work proposal, which will be scheduled for May.
Thank you, Mark. And I think it's probably worth saying, as part of the new settlement, we will have this continuous, ongoing, improved understanding of our members. So although we will undertake a consultation exercise, we should continuously be working with our members, so we'll get a better feel and intelligence about what they really need from us, which we can then crystallise in that consultation, can't we?
That's right, and we continue to have one-on-one dialogue with the leaders of our member organisations, and this consultation process will become an annual cycle. We are at the very start of this process, and we'll learn a lot from it for the first time, and then we'll get into a regular routine of running it probably annually, and it'll look in detail at the next year ahead, and then 3 or 4 years beyond that in slightly less detail. But it's the start of a journey, and we'll undoubtedly learn a lot as we go through this first process.
Great, thanks, Mark. If we move on to the next question, and if you could just forgive me, I'll read it out. It's saying, in reporting progress in leading health and safety, is there an intention to set targets, objectives, trajectories to ensure there is a common view of what progress looks like?
The short answer to that is no. That is something that has been tried before, but wasn't successful. I think it didn't meet with what industry is actually trying to achieve. Individual duty holders have particular accountabilities and responsibilities that they have to achieve. What we're seeking to do with the leading health and safety strategy is to develop themes that the industry can get together on to actually improve safety through collaboration and joint working. And our role at RSSB is first to help facilitate that. The strategy is owned by the Rail Delivery Group. RSSB's role is to help facilitate and deliver and monitor how the industry works to deliver those particular programs of work. But it isn't to set strategies, targets and trajectories. Right,
thank you, Mark. So I think essentially we will facilitate, we will undertake some monitoring of overall progress against it and inform all of our members. And of course, we will be accountable for delivery of our components of it, won't we? Because there's a number of work programs that we have got to do to deliver it.
We do, and I think we'll also play a role in identifying where there is some good practice, where there might be areas of work that others could copy because it's worked and demonstrated some great results. And also, I think, point out where things might need a bit more attention if they're not moving as quickly as perhaps the industry might want.
So that's all part of the horizon scanning and thought leading component of the new settlement. Thank you. If we could just move on to the next question, which is, can you say more about RSSB's possible role in relation to cybersecurity?
Over the last year, RSSB produced a cybersecurity strategy. We brought in some of the latest thinking, particularly from government agencies, and we've developed a strategy with industry support and contributions. We've now passed that draft strategy to the Rail Delivery Group, who now own it, and we expect that they will publish it on behalf of the industry in the next few weeks. And I think that will provide the backdrop from which the industry can then take forward a number of key themes to ensure that it can put in place the right protection measures for the future. Undoubtedly, it's something that will require refresh over time. There will be new things that will need to be added, and it will be for the Rail Delivery Group to decide whether it does those updates itself or whether it commissions RSSB to carry that work out.
And do you think it's reasonable to expect, Mark, that through our core capability, there may be things that RDG ask us to help deliver as part of that cybersecurity strategy in due course?
It's possible. We see that as being out with our core areas of competency and responsibility. And this is where we would describe this as being almost a discretionary piece of work, because it could be done in other places. It doesn't have to be done at RSSB. And if it is the view of our RDG that they would like us to do it because we have some skills, then it's possible that we may have to secure some additional funding in order to do that. Because what we're seeking to do through this consultation exercise is to get a clear sense of priorities around those 4 key work streams that we've talked about earlier, and what industry and our members want us to do in those areas. If there are other things that emerge that people want us to do, then we need to think about how we might achieve that, if we've got the right competencies to do it, and then how that might be funded.
Yes. And linking it back to our earlier research question, I suppose if our members wanted support as part of cybersecurity in relation to research, is that something else that they could potentially approach us about?
It certainly is. And again, we will consider it in the same light that I've just described.
Thank you. Yep. Right. The next question we have is, what does all this mean for the future of the member levy to RSSB?
Well, the member levy is set for the control period 5, and we are managing our resources within the constraints that has. And that's why when we receive the feedback from this consultation exercise, one of the things we'll have to do will be to identify how we allocate the resource we have within RSSB to the different work streams. So where do we actually want to focus our people? So there is a very real issue when we're looking at if we want to increase the outputs in health and well-being, and also sustainability, that we might need to refocus some of our resources in order to achieve that. So there will be some choices to make about where we allocate our available funds to do future work. And then going forward into CP6, that's something that we'll consult the industry on in terms of, again, the work program that the industry wants us to do, and then we can think about what the resource requirements would be to deliver that.
Thank you, Mark. So the core message is that through the 4 work priority areas that we've outlined in support of this consultation, that's where we'll be devoting our principal resources and capability, as we are funded to do through the core levy. And anything else would be discretionary, and we would then have to seek alternative funding and approval. And then we will revisit that for CP6 in the run-up to that in 2019.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. Right. The next question we have is in relation to the focus groups. So how were the focus groups defined in support of this consultation, if I could explain?
Broadly, we wanted to develop a themed consultation so that our members could identify which were the areas that were most relevant to their area of interest. So instead of having to send perhaps several people to one large gathering, we felt it would be more appropriate to break it down into themes. We focused particularly on those areas that are most relevant to the changes that we're talking about in the consultation document. And that's how we've devised those particular topic areas. And we hope that members will be able to find somebody that is of particular interest to them, and how they can actually engage with us at that level. And we can build that feedback alongside the written contributions that we receive through the website.
Yes. So I think that's the key point. It is just to say we're going for a cross-section of members to spread the burden and also get different perspectives in relation to each of the 4 focus groups. If anybody wishes to participate, just let us know and we can orchestrate and invite. But it's just another means of getting people's input, isn't it, beyond the individual consultations? So,
yes, and we'll have our subject experts at those forums, so they will be able to talk in more detail about the types of topic areas that our members would be interested in.
So hopefully it'll result in a really good informed debate. The next question is, does the approach to discretionary work mean you are going to be asking for more funds?
It is possible that if we're asked to do things outside our principal areas of responsibility, and those are standards, system safety, research around the system interface, if we're asked to do other things that are beyond those key boundaries, then we may well have to approach the industry for specific funding to do those pieces of work. Because I think what the Work we've done with the ORR over the last few months has identified is that sometimes we've diverted our activities and resources onto things that are maybe not as important for the industry and its future direction as we might think. And what we're seeking to do with this process is to be very clear about what RSSB is going to do, what its contribution is to the industry over the next period, and anything else that does need to be isolated and considered and funded separately.
Right. So that would be a discrete business case revolving proper proposals being put forward in response to member or industry needs, and we would then have to, as part of that, be clear where the funds were coming from to pay.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and if it's a significant work stream, then that would need to go to the RSSB board for approval, because it could be taking RSSB's work stream in a very different direction to our key areas and principal objectives.
Great, thank you, Mark. And we've just got time for one last question, which is, recognising that safety and risk are your main areas of expertise, how can you help us with more practical tools in those areas?
Well, absolutely. Those are key areas of activity for RSSB. We're currently spending nearly £5 million on the safety recording system, SMIS, and that will be completed over the course of the next few weeks. The next step of work in that program activity is to update the safety risk model to improve some of the algorithms and how that system is built up. And then we will start to think, well, how can we actually help our members deploy that model in their own businesses? So how can they actually use the outcomes and the results that it produces for them to think about some of the safety choices that they have to make, the investments that they might make in new systems or new ways of working? The safety risk model helps give some answers and options around that. So I think very much it's about getting those systems updated, ready for industry use, and then actually going out to our member organisations and help demonstrate how they can be deployed to local use to be most beneficial.
Thank you, Mark. And I think it's fair to say we've signposted that one of the things we're looking at is whether we can offer an improved training offering in support of equipping our members to be able to handle the implementation of some of these things. And that's something we'll be definitely talking to them more about in due course. Mark, over to you to conclude.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you for some really interesting questions in that session. But more importantly, thank you for your time today. We'll be following up with you tomorrow, and you will receive copies of the slides from today's presentation, along with a link to the web video from today's webinar. We hope you found the session useful, and as a result understand a little more about this consultation process and how to respond. As we mentioned previously, the consultation closes on March the 21st, and we look forward to seeing as many responses as possible.